is going on, all you wonderful A-plusers out there? It is I, Stuart, here once again to give you guys another Kamen Rider Saber review. This time, today, we are taking a look at Kamen Rider Saber episode 18. So guys, let's get this review started. So despite last week's ending, Toma and Yuri end up not fighting, but instead, they continue to debate about how to go about destroying this snow monster. Geez, wouldn't it be nice if the other Kamen Riders were this civil? I will say this, that it was a bit of a surprise because they did kind of leave the ending of the previous episode as if that was the direction they were going with at the beginning of this episode, but at the same time I am also kind of relieved because there really wasn't need for more conflict within the other writers. You already have the fact that the Sword of Logos don't trust Toma. We really didn't need the whole conflict between Yuri and Toma as well. It would have just added a bit too much to my opinion. Meanwhile, back at the South Pole base, Rintaro and Tetsudo finally decide to talk things out with Toma, although apparently all the writers forgot that they had orders to bring Toma in. In this episode, they say that they only had orders to bring in Yuri, but I don't know. I remember the orders being that they had to bring in Toma and Yuri, so maybe I'm remembering it wrong, I don't know. We get backstory on Yuri and how he became the Sword of Light. He talks about giving up his humanity to save the world as he expresses disappointment in Toma for not doing the same thing. We get a little more of an idea of his mindset. He sees it as, saving the world and not really saving the people within the world, whereas Toma feels that saving the people in the world is the same thing as saving the world. Rintaro and Toma finally have a conversation as Rintaro attempts to convince Toma that Caliber was lying to him, but Toma is still convinced otherwise. I actually really do like this scene because there's an actual conversation going on. It never feels super one-sided one way or the other. Both characters are actually hearing what the other character has to say. This is something that really could have been used a couple more episodes ago. It's just sad that the scene is almost completely ruined by what happens next. The snow monster returns to attack the city and Rintaro tries to strike it down. Toma gets in the way and tells Rintaro that the snow monster is actually a human, but Rintaro thinks Toma is actually working for the enemy. Normally I wouldn't have minded this, except for the way Toma goes about trying to stop the fight is that he doesn't ever draw his sword, or maybe he has his sword out but he uses it to block attacks, never to strike. He clearly can see that the snow monster is striking Toma several times, and the entire fight Toma doesn't strike Rintaro once, and yet Rintaro kind of leaves this fight with the mindset of Toma has betrayed us. He's working with the enemy. How dare he not strike down the enemy? Clearly, with all the weird stuff that's happened around here, worlds merging together, but a human being taken over and turned into a monster. No, that's where we draw the line apparently. That's where we know Toma has to be lying, right? I really want this feud between the writers to end so badly. Meanwhile, Tetsudo tries to bring back Yuri to the Sword of Logos, but that goes about as well as you would expect. Yuri uses his Kamen Rider form again, but it's not as transparent as it was in the previous episode, most likely because the special effects were too expensive, plus they take a lot of time. Toma gets injured trying to save the monster without fighting, so he and Yuri escape as the monster himself also flees. Back at the store, Yuri finally agrees to give Toma a chance to prove that he can save the editor-in-chief without destroying the snow monster. They find the monster in an abandoned factory, but he's not there alone. Legile stands beside the monster as he warns Toma the book is nearly complete. Once the book is finished, the effects will be permanent. Yuri fights Legile while Toma fights the snow monster. Toma's plan is a bit convoluted and, if I'm being honest, really makes no sense. He waits until the monster is fully powered up so he can strike the monster's book, which destroys him, but not the human he possesses. Now, my question is, how did Toma know that the book would appear at the moment it was completed? It didn't ruin the episode for me, but it definitely raised a lot of questions, like, how the hell did Toma know that that was gonna work? But to be fair, they do actually bring that up at the very end of the episode, which I'll get into in just a minute. Yuri is impressed by Toma's strategy as he allows Toma to wield him so they can both take down Legile, which they absolutely wipe the floor with him, but as we've seen in the show, the villains tend to come back the next week like nothing happened after they get destroyed, so I'm sure we'll see him again next week. Toma and Yuri are finally on the same page as they agree their next mission is to straighten things out with the Sword of Logos. Also, Yuri reveals that striking down the monster with him would have had the same result. Toma's reaction is kind of the same reaction I had. What? Like, okay, so this was something that really could have come up in conversation several times in the previous episode and in this episode, and he claims that he already said this, but again, I don't remember that ever coming up at all. Toma doesn't deny that he mentioned this before, but I find it weird that he doesn't deny that because like I said, I don't remember him ever saying that in the previous episodes. On the one hand, this was a hilarious way to end the episode. On the other hand, I'm kind of just like, I really didn't know how to feel about that last line, if I'm being honest, and I still don't know how to feel about it. It definitely came out of left field, and you know, it got a laugh out of me, so if that was the writer's goal, which I'm sure it was, congrats, that was funny. That was really funny. It was also incredibly dumb. But yeah, overall, this was a really good episode. The only scene that I wasn't the biggest fan of was Rintaro and Toma working together while fighting against the snow monster, only because there was really no reason for Rintaro to assume that Toma was lying there, especially because just the scene earlier, Rintaro and Toma seemed to be on the same page of agreeing to disagree, so it's really weird that this is where Rintaro was like drawing the line of, oh no, you clearly must be lying, monsters can't take over people like that, as if that's the weirdest thing to occur in this show. I mean, you literally had a giant mech using Touma as a sword about 10 episodes ago, but oh, monsters taking over people, that's where we draw the line, okay. But with the exception of that scene, I did actually really like the fact that in this episode, characters were finally talking to each other. At the very end, it is implied that Rintaro might fully be on board with the Sword of Logos and not willing to hear out Toma later on, but I choose to believe that he's going to make the right decision in the next episode when the time matters. Of course, we'll have to wait and see if that ends up being true or not. And depending on what actually happens in the next episode, that could actually change my whole perspective on what I think of this episode. But for now, I did think it was a pretty good episode. But guys, at the end of the day, those are just my A+ opinions. We here at A+ Opinions always want to know what you guys think, so definitely let me know in the comments below. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and if you guys want to be notified when we drop new content, don't forget to hit that notification bell. Lastly, we do have a Patreon out there, and I've been doing Kamen Rider Ryuki and Kamen Rider Dragon Knight reviews on that Patreon page, so if you guys are interested in checking those out, definitely check out the tier list that we have on our Patreon if you guys are interested. But if you are not, that is totally fine. Just subscribing to our channel and watching our video, that alone means a lot to us, and it really does help us with growing the channel. But guys, just remember, more importantly, to keep it A+.